So I'd like to ask the distinguished guests from Bennington to raise their right hand. The court will swear to that.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm that you will like to the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
Thank you. Whenever you're ready to take it away, Tom, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Thank you all for having us here today. Let me just introduce our group here. I'm Dee. I'm the President and CEO of Southwestern Vermont Medical Center. And to my right, Steve Majetti, who's our Chief Financial Officer. And to him is Dr. Trey Dobson, who's our Chief Medical Officer, as well as the head of Hitchcock Putnam Medical Group. And to the right of him is Christy Cross, who is the Director of the Bennington Blueprint. To the right of Christy, we have Jim Roy, who's our Controller. So, again, thank you. We'll stick with the time frame we've allocated. And I'm just going to give just a quick initial overview. Steve Majetti will do the majority of the presentation. So, just going from the presentation submitted, just to give you just a very quick overview, a graphical overview of SBHC, which is our healthcare system, of which SBHC is the major component. Over 80% of our system is the medical center. But just to state that we do have a presence of our health system in 3 states and over 9 locations. How we've expanded this year with our express care locations, both in Bennington and Manchester. We have a medical staff of it's always a moving target, about 190, roughly 190 physicians. And we have an ever-growing number, and we'll talk more about this later on, of tele-providers, physicians and other providers that assist our health system through the Hitchcock relationship. We're employing over 1,400 people. Our medical staff, the board-certified staff of physicians in their residency, their area of training, in their residency, and we are affiliated with our Hitchcock. Our Vision 2020 is really, and I talked about this last year, is our strategic roadmap that we created 5 years ago, and we're in the process of updating it, but it's based on the premise of building 3 pillars of creating partnerships in healthcare, realizing that we're not large enough or diverse enough or even talented enough in certain areas to do everything on our own, so we need assistance. The partnership model is something we've been employing. We are trying to transform our health system away from a fee-for-service acute care model to really a population health system model. We'll talk more about that. And sustainability is a key facet of what we're looking for, where we will bring higher value, better healthcare outcomes, hopefully at a lower cost. And that's what we're striving for as we look at and develop plans under Vision 2020. As the first part of Vision 2020 is our major partnerships, and even though we're affiliated with Dartmouth, and they are by far our biggest partner, we're doing many things with them. I'll talk about that in a moment. We are looking to have other partnerships, from Castleton University, where we are today, to our coalition of organizations in Bennington, to our substance abuse group that we formed, our task force. And of course, we're very involved with the Bennington redevelopment project, which is a key piece of our efforts to revitalize our region. Talking about Dartmouth for a moment, we've been involved with Dartmouth now for over 5 years. It's been a growing relationship that we're continuing to pursue. It's taken a little bit of a pause on our plans to move into a higher level of collaboration with Dartmouth, because they're going through really I would say it's a full asset merger with Grand One Health in New Hampshire. So as they go through that transaction, they've had to put other discussions on hold because they're being reviewed by the federal government at the Federal Trade Commission level. So they have to take a kind of a holding pattern of other relations until this is gone. And just speaking to the CEO of Dartmouth before I came in here this afternoon, I mean, their time frame is that they're hoping to be done with that transaction by June of 2020. So we continue to move ahead and do things, do initiatives together, but in terms of developing a legal corporate structure, we have that on hold until they complete their transaction. Very significant. But in the meantime, they continue to work with us very closely, running our cancer center, helping to develop our orthopedic program. They actually manage our quality and safety and value division, do a major involvement with our team, especially Dr. Dobson on physician recruitment. A huge emphasis on telemedicine. I'll talk more about that in a moment. And we're expanding now, and we're expanding to have management contract with them to run peri-op services, our surgical services at the hospital, which is, we just signed a new contract for that to take place. And they'll be taking over our anesthesia services in January of 2020. So the relationship is continuing to build. We're looking to look for opportunities to integrate wherever we can, because we believe the opportunity to become higher value organization, better outcomes at a lower cost, where we can share costs with other organizations like Dartmouth, is a great opportunity for us, and that one which I think we're looking to pursue every opportunity we can. Just to mention a new partnership, which really officially kicks off in September, is Castleton, and we're putting a major emphasis on workforce development for our region. And we realize that in the short number of years ahead of us, there's going to be a huge nursing crisis. So we're trying to get in front of that, and we developed a partnership with Castleton University. We had one with Southern Vermont College. When they announced their closure, we quickly looked at our alternatives. We thought Castleton made a lot of sense. So we went into negotiation. We came to an agreement that we would partner with them on development of a nursing program in our region. They've agreed to come down to Bennington, so that they're going to have a presence in space that was occupied by the Southern Vermont College. And our goal is to look to attract individuals, young kids as well as people in their careers, to go into the nursing profession. And our incentive is, if they come and they get into the program, they graduate, they get their license, agree to come and work with us, that we would give them up to 100% tuition reimbursement through a process that we're working with the state of Vermont on. So we think it could be a great win-win. Initially, we've had close to 40 individuals signed up for programs since we've announced it, and I think it's going to be a great opportunity for us to deal with a very significant problem. And also, to be honest, it's a way to have local kids, young adults, be able to stay home, stay locally, get a great college education. When they graduate, have a place to work that pays a good salary and gives them a chance to kind of live in the area and have a gainful employment. So Castleton plays a major role here for us, and we're excited to work with them. But we're also doing many other things. And I invited Christy Cross to come and speak with us with you today, to make some comments. Christy's the head of our blueprint, but we're doing a Bennington collaborative, and we're focusing on, and you all know about this, the social determinants of health. Bennington County, in particular Bennington, is very challenged in this area. We know in many indicators we're near the bottom of the ranking in terms of the state of Vermont from a standpoint of health and well-being, and certainly the whole economics plays a major role in this. So we're focusing on areas that we can help our community. One small example is the picture to the right there is Healthy Homes, where we're acquiring distressed properties, and we're actually renovating those properties, and we're selling them back to our employees. It's a small program, but it's a step towards trying to help our workforce and help our community, and also revitalize downtown. Also, the picture to the left of that is our partnership with Rise Vermont. We now have a very active chapter of Rise Vermont at our health system, and we hired an employee to run it. And we understand that the future of healthcare is us not just being on the hill in Bennington or in the acute care services. We need to collaborate on all aspects of the healthcare continuum, and a lot of that is non-acute care services that deal with these type of issues. So if I can just go to the next slide and just ask Christy to say some comments.
Thank you, Tom. So the Bennington Community Collaborative is our accountable community for health in Bennington. And we have about 20 organizations very well engaged, invested in the work that we're doing. It's one of my favorite meetings to run because we really believe there with a to-do list and follow-ups. And if you want to go to the next slide, I'll talk a little bit about food insecurity. So the Bennington College is partnered with SBHC and the school system and our Bennington Food Clinic with a $1 million grant from the Mellon Foundation. It's a curriculum-based grant right now with some opportunities for mini grants in the community and with some students. We'll also do some fieldwork term initiatives. We also have some monthly Veggie Van Go site and many food drops. And I want to talk about our Bennington Substance Abuse Task Force. I'm also the project director for the Bennington Opioid Response Plan. And we actually are considering changing our name to the Substance Abuse Task Force because it's much more than just opioids now. We've made some significant progress since forming the committee in spring of 2018. We've been reporting out to Congressman Peter Welch and our local legislators. And we really wanted to focus on establishing a project coordinator to create a strategic plan, which we did accomplish. We wanted to roll out rapid access to medication-assisted treatment and AED at SVMC, which we were able to do. We're able to refer folks to treatment within 72 hours. And we have just rolled out our strategic plan only 2 weeks ago. So we're working on that, and that's going to be some youth resiliency initiatives, and we'll also have some mental health components in that and recovery housing.
So certainly one of our major, biggest initiatives under our partnership with Vision 2020 is the downtown redevelopment project. Just real quick, we did have our major groundbreaking in early August. The first phase of the project is now underway, which is a $28 million project. The hospital, the banks, colleges, and a number of smaller organizations are partnering together. And this is to help, again, to revitalize and hopefully create employment in our area, help to create better housing, help create sustainability in the Bennington region. And the first phase we've done 18 months. The second phase will be another 18 months, of which a major piece of that will be the creation of a medical building complex, which will house a number of key services. Again, getting the hospital more down into the community, into areas that we have not historically physically in the past, and providing key services such as dialysis and urgent care and rehab services to our community. So it's a heavy lift, but one which we think is vital for our region. As we look at the transformation of SVMC, one of the major things that we're partnering with Dartmouth on is telemedicine services. And as you can see, there is a broad array of services, and actually, Trey Dobson has been our point person on that. Let me just have him say a comment or two.
So you can see all those listed. That picture there, that is a hospitalist, Dr. Swan, taking care of a patient in our ICU, and you can see an intensivist is in the background on the monitor. So at SVMC, we haven't had intensivists there for at least 15 years, and the hospitals do an excellent job. But by having the critical care doctor in the background, what we're seeing is being able to get patients out of the ICU quicker. In other words, when they meet criteria to get onto the floor, the number of days of being on a ventilator decreasing, compliance with known bundles that you perform in an ICU increasing, and that's a very successful program. Every single one of our ICU rooms has this capability, so all patients are afforded that. And the same thing in the emergency department. So we have, I worked last Friday in our emergency department. I used the tele-emergency twice. It's basically a button on the wall. and physicians, my colleagues at DHMC are taking care of the patient as well as the nursing staff. It allows, the best part is I no longer have to have my RN colleague typing on the computer when there's a sick patient in front of us. That's just the biggest waste of anybody's time. So now that's done remotely at DHMC, and so the nurse and I and the other staff can be right there with the patient, which is a huge gain. Then most of the other services there, as you can see, there's some outpatient services, and those are synergistic. So when we bring more on, we're going to be able to bring more on. In other words, you have one or two and the usage is low. When you have several, then you start increasing usage. So pediatric cardiology, I think there are 60 patients in our health service area that we travel to DHMC in a given year, and we can take care of about 50% of those now without them having to drive.
Dartmouth's vision is to be the largest telehealth provider in the Northeast. And right now, we are the largest recipient of their services. And it's a major investment, probably close to $800,000 a year in terms of our services. But our investment, we think it's going to have a significant return on value for both patients as well as over time. I think it's going to be a financial return on investment too.
What's the typical wait time for you to get the intensivist on the monitor?
So if it was an emergency, they would stop what they were doing and come right away. But for an urgent thing, it would be about 10 minutes.
10 minutes?
So yeah, a typical intensivist typical tele-intensivist has 60 patients, of which most of them aren't in need of service. So it's really quickly we can get a hold of them.
Of course, as we look at our health system, as I say, what continues to play the base notes is primary care. We can't be successful without a strong, robust primary care system. We are challenged, as most hospitals, in terms of primary care, but we continue to expand. We're adding updated facilities. The facility you see here is a rendering of one which we're constructing, renovating right now over in the Wilmington area. And we're looking to expand these services, add additional array of services, including telehealth to that. But ultimately, as you see a bullet there, our longer-term vision is to see if we can develop our own family medicine training program. I've done this before in my career. It's not easy, but I think it's something that it could work in our region. And our need to continue to recruit primary care physicians is only going to increase as our existing workforce of physicians retires. And we're going to be facing a significant challenge over the next 5 years as half of our family practitioners will retire from practice. So this is a big piece of our future, and we're hoping to work closely with Dartmouth-Hitchcock to make this a reality. So from a sustainability standpoint, we realize that healthcare costs are high. We realize that we need to continue to push the envelope, looking at ways to do work smarter and better with less mistakes, improving patient access, enhancing our patient satisfaction. And at SVHC, I think it's been our philosophy to try to look for ways of how to reduce costs, be it through telemedicine, or be it through transitional care nursing and other innovative initiatives. And this is something that's ongoing. It doesn't stop for us. One which we continue to challenge ourselves, and our board challenges us as to how we can do things at a higher value and at a lower cost for our health system. And part of that is being part of OneCare. Steve will talk more about that. We're very engaged in OneCare. We're participating in all three models of Medicare, Medicaid, and Blue Cross. We have over 12,000 covered lives. And our spend rate is nearly over $90 million in terms of volume of revenue that comes through the OneCare system. We continue to be concerned about OneCare, to be honest, just in terms of the level of risk that we can sustain. We're not a big organization, and if we make a mistake in our estimates, it could be very challenging for us. Right now, we have risk corridors that are limited. We have a $2 million risk corridor, both upside and downside, and that's one which we are currently negotiating with OneCare on to maintain, because of the fragile state that we find ourselves. But clearly, we are supportive of One Care. We buy into the concept. We just have to make sure that it's at a pace at which we can handle the organizations. So as we move forward, as Vision 2020 comes to a close next year, we're doing a new strategic plan as we speak. We're focusing on key things that what drives what we do, how we determine what services we provide. It comes through our community service plan assessment that we do every year. We're developing a series of strategic imperatives. One thing that we're a major issue that we're dealing with through this planning process is behavioral health. So how do we handle never-growing population under the fact that we really don't have licensed behavioral health services? And should we be in that model? Should we be much more involved in it? And that's something which we do as a major leadership discussion between our medical staff, our board, and management, and what the role of DAs will be in that. Certainly a big piece of our future. And we'll talk more about the rollout of phase 1 and phase 2 of our modernization projects. Again, we're the oldest physical plant in Vermont, and our services show the need to upgrade from the standpoint of our infrastructure. So that's a big piece of our strategic planning process going forward. So I'll pass this on to Steve, unless you have any questions right now.
Okay, we're good. We're getting to all the nitty-gritty now. So the first slide is a summary of our request to the board. We submitted a budget this year of about $172 million. That's inclusive of fee-for-service and fixed payments. And when I break out the increase that we're asking for, it's a $7 million increase. $2 million of it, or thereabouts, is in what we call rate/price. 3.7 million is volumes and services. And then we are, as Tom mentioned in his introduction, we will be physician or anesthesia group will be coming January 1 underneath the umbrella of the hospital through a PSA arrangement with Dartmouth-Hitchcock. And that will add $1.3 million worth of billing revenues for a total increase of a little over $7 million. When we start tearing apart the rate price, and this is what we get paid, there's a 2.8, composite 2.8% increase in revenue from commercial payers. There's a Medicare increase. We budgeted 1% from the fee-for-service. These are for the Medicare patients that don't attribute to us or didn't select to go into the One Care model, and 3.5% for the fixed payment model of the One Care patients. There's also a decrease from Medicare related to the provider-based payment reduction. Effective January 1st, 2020, there'll be a reduction in what they pay for provider-based billing at the off-sites that we have, and that amounts to a little over $760,000, and that's a reduction. We did provide, back in May when we prepared the budget, a 1% Medicaid increase, which is still to be determined, so there's a little risk in that number. Our disproportionate share payment decrease was $183,000. We received that notification in late May, early June, and we included that in the budget. We also shifted some of our patients away from commercial. This is the second year in a row we've built that into our budget. First year in 2019, we are achieving our assumptions, so we continue with that. I'll explain a little more as we move on in the presentation, the thought process behind that. And then we increased our bad debt and charity care $200,000, which I'll touch on a little later as well. Not a big increase. We believe that through our financial counseling, through working with our patients that need assistance, working with our all the offices, the doctor's offices, and we're going to actually, it's a risk factor, but we believe it's not going to go up as much as it has in the past years. So we have a total rate slash price of $2 million increase in our submission. And then the other piece, the other significant piece is volumes. In our medical practices, we are increasing $1.1 million. In January of this year, and included in our 19 budget, we had 2 new orthopedic practitioners come aboard. That's a big driver there. And then those orthopedic providers will also drive a good chunk of the outpatient surgical services that we have there. Also, the oncology services of $1.1 million, that's a combination between volume. We continue to see increases in volume, slowing down a little bit over the past couple of years, but still we're projecting a slight increase, as well as some of the drug revenues that go with the increased chemotherapy. And we did provide for additional radiation therapy, working with the team from Dartmouth. They've identified some opportunities, and so oncology is increasing. And we are doing, as part of our strategic plan, we've also hired some outside help to help us with our assumptions related to the oncology service, to make sure that we're capturing what we can do, because we can't do everything, and making sure that one of the things when we build our budget, we're trying to keep patients home. And when I say home, in Bennington. So patients will always migrate to Dana-Farber or Sloan County, places like that, but if they can get the treatment at home, it's much better for the patient, and the outcomes are better, and patients are just happier. So on the oncology service, we're having a little focus group, part of our strategic plan. Inpatient volumes, a slight uptick there. We've got a new general surgeon that we believe will get some volume there. Some of the orthopedics, well, most orthopedics are going to outpatient. There's still some that'll be inpatient, so we believe we're going to get a couple of those coming through from the new practitioners. Endoscopy, we are, and I don't want to say this because I always jinx ourselves, but our staffing with providers is much better than it's been. I don't want to say we're fully staffed, but we have the providers in place now, and we will drive some additional volume there. MRI and CAT scan volumes, we provided a little extra volume there. Those are high ticket items, but in our plan, in the medical practices also, we budgeted a neurologist coming aboard, and we thought we would have a contract signed, and due to some extenuating circumstances, the physician hasn't signed, but is still verbally committed to us, and will be so we're keeping those assumptions in place. But we don't have a signed agreement yet. And then everything else is kind of smashed together, and there's a slight reduction there in some services. So total volume in services is $3.7 million. Anesthesia, I'm going to classify that physician acquisition. Currently we have a PSA with the group, and they gave us notice that they are no longer going to provide anesthesia services. They bill separately. They run their own business. We subsidize them. So effective January 1st, 2020, we will be hiring all the providers, both anesthesiologists and anesthesia assistants. We will bill for them, and they will be actually hired through the Dartmouth PSA agreements, and that's going to add $1.3 million of revenues. It has a slight increase. It's a negative to the overall operations, but not a significant negative because we did provide a subsidy. So just to summarize, we came in right at the 3.5% target. Our revenues are 172. When you back out the system, the physician acquisition revenues of $1.3 million, adjusted net patient service revenue will be a little bit under $171 million. Compare that to 165. We're going to come in at the 3.5% guidance that was given, and so we believe the submission met the target that the board gave us in the instructions back in March. You want to go questions, want to go through the whole thing, you want to go questions on each section? Just keep going?
Keep going.
Okay. So, the other, items 3 and 4, hospital issues and high-level risk and opportunities. So, as Tom talked about, our service area, the Bennington County, Eastern New York, and Northwestern Massachusetts, we are seeing population aging, 1% shift equals about $450,000 less in revenue. The service area has declining population. It's aging, Medicare, Medicaid, and as Tom talked about, economic conditions in the region are difficult. An opportunity for us is the Massachusetts payer mix that we get currently is more favorable than the Vermont. However, if we would really start drawing some patients from another border town of North Adams, the payer mix, I may not be making that statement, but most of the patients that we draw from Massachusetts are on the commercial side. And the reason why we can't get Medicaid in Massachusetts is because they have an ACO model in Massachusetts, and we don't participate in the Massachusetts ACO, Berkshire Medical. I don't want to use the only word I can think of is they own that population, so they can't come across the border and get care. So it works for us financially. So looking at the age demographics, I think last year I shared this graph. This is an important graph for our strategic plan. And basically a lot of lines at the bottom, but the red line shows 2024, and you can see how how the graph is just flat at the bottom there. And that's the commercial insurance. Those are people who have commercial insurance. And as you can see, the Medicare population is going to be a big driver for us in 2024 and even in 2026. So our population is getting older, the below age 25 is shrinking, and the workforce in our region is going down. Here's a busy picture, but the purple side, the left side, talks about how our population grew older by the zip codes. And the zip codes that lost working age population, you can see. The numbers that are in there are 63, 44 for gained seniors. That's in our service area, even though the map is a little bigger than our service area. We just counted in our service area the zip codes. And the same thing, we lost 7,400 in our zip codes. On the map's a little bigger, the numbers represent our zip codes. So it shows what the Vermont Digger, they put an article out, is the Southern Vermont demographic collapse. You can see Vermont is almost break even, maybe a little growth. Bennington County is showing a 4% reduction in population. The population, and then, if you look at all the economic indicators, less population, lower incomes, and when you look at the social determinants of health, you start seeing an increase on their counties in the U.S. averages. Another risk Tom talked about is our workforce and recruitment. SVMC, from the staff analysis, we're about 6% lower than the Vermont average in the market. It's provided by the Medicare staff. That 6% is a significant number. Question would be, what would be the right number for Bennington County and our HR staff? We have a software product that we use. They say it's probably not 6, it's maybe 5, maybe 4, but that's one of the issues we have with workforce. Every time we recruit somebody, we then have to increase everybody else's salary in a job classification if we can't get people. And that creates an inability for us to recruit qualified staff. Age of providers and nursing staff, Tom talked about that, and workplace violence, especially in the emergency room. We're seeing a lot of workplace violence, and we've actually put additional dollars this year into the emergency room. We've actually added over 10 FTEs, and we've actually brought in outside contracted additional security of over $425,000. When we look at the risks, if we don't get to the average, we may not be able to recruit the people. We have significant dollars budgeted for the agency and locals, and there's a lot. Tom talked about our family medicine program, which we're looking to develop, and that is ever changing. We've submitted a grant to the feds, and we're fortunate we didn't get it. So we've had to do some readjustments, but we'll be coming forth with a plan on that. And then we started working with Southern Vermont College, but now we're with Castleton, trying to provide ways to get the local students to go into nursing. And we actually have some people that are donating money, so some of this will be not out of the hospitals, but it'll be fundraised, maybe some of that tuition. So that's exciting for our foundation team. So there are opportunities. Workforce challenges, I'm just going to go through this slide. We've seen a shrink, we've said it a couple times. Behavioral health. We've seen an increase in individuals with mental health, both in the ED and the primary care offices. We're making some changes in the primary care offices and in the ED. Most of these patients, I'm a finance guy, but talking to Trey, Christy, and the care teams, most people with some of these mental health and substance use disorders, they have multiple complex medical issues that require a lot of attention. So this is a big one in our strategic plan. The economic impact to the community is high and high risk for our providers and employees becoming injured, especially in the ED. We're looking at possibly a local substance use disorder program, and we're going to partner with UCS and other organizations to help us with that, because we don't have the talent in-house, so we got to do a lot of partnering.
So who's UCS?
That's
UCS.
a designated agency in Bennington County, so it's the United Counseling Service.
So we're reaching out to other organizations that have successful programs to see if we can partner with them. Our physical plan and information technology platform, Tom mentioned our plan is 18 years old. Our modernization plans cost nearly $50 million, and that's excluding our information technology platform, which could cost between $20 and $25 million. Our strategic plan will be completed this fall, along with a 5-year financial plan. So we'll be plugging these things in, the significant risk we have to get our average age of plant down to 13 years, and to put an information technology plan together would be between $50 to $70 million. So our current P&L cannot support that. Our balance sheet can. The system has a good, strong balance sheet, but in order to do all this, there has to be balancing act between the two. So our cash, our strengths, and opportunities, we have 160 days cash on hand, and we have a favorable long-term debt to capitalization ratio. Our balance sheet, like I said, is strong, and we have a pretty robust fundraising plan. So we currently have significant commitments from several individuals and organizations fundraising plan. So we've got to find ways to pay for all this. Telemedicine, I think Trey and Tom talked about it, but we believe this is a significant opportunity, and we continue to invest in it. We believe we're going to improve access to primary care and specialty care and keep patients local. That's the key, keep patients local, both in the ACO model and I just think in life in general. But I can tell you, I look at it all the time. If we keep patients in Bennington instead of going to Albany, every patient that we keep, we can save money to the system. Because the rates that you pay in Albany are higher than you would to Southwestern Vermont. And then just a list of a couple other things, regulatory increases. We put a Medicare increase in that hasn't yet been approved, neither is the outpatient. We put a 1% Medicaid increase in, talking to OneCare, they told me they're still negotiating that as of last week. Retention of providers and recruitment. I put a number on it between $600 and $1 million. I just look at the locums and the replacements would cost us each year, and that's about the number. Volume assumptions and payer mix assumptions. I know Jim Lloyd loses sleep sometimes when we only budgeted a 1% shift in our payer mix to Medicare. When he looks at the age demographics and he's looking at the claims that are coming through, maybe there's more on the downside. But if our payer mix stays the same, there is an opportunity for us to recoup about $425,000. And in this year's budget, we did not increase our drug cost assumptions. And I'll talk about that now, we'll talk about it later, but we believe we're working very closely with Dartmouth Hitchcock, and we are really trying to maximize the 340B program and make sure that every drug that we're purchasing, we're getting in the right bucket. Is it a 340B drug? Can we buy it? And so we took an aggressive approach this year. And we've seen a trend over the past 6 months, using the initiatives at Dartmouth, their pharmacy team. We're comfortable, but there's risk. Key metrics, I won't go too much into detail, but our operating margins are relatively consistent. Our operating expenses for the indicators compared to other PPS hospitals are lower. One of the drivers of our bottom line is depreciation expense. We have the oldest plant, thus there's not a lot of depreciation. My depreciation expense as a percent of expenses, a percent of revenue is lowest around. Interest expense is very low, below benchmarks due to the low debt and aging plant. And cash flows from operations continue to be very close to break even. So while we're showing positive operating margin, our cash flows are close due to capital investments and a big weight around our ankle is our pension fund. So that is chewing up the cash, and that does not get into any of the calculations when you look at the debt calculations typically. Long-term debt capitalization ratio, the pension does not get into that. So the cash that I'll be using on long-term debt, I'm paying the pension. And we're looking really hard to get out of that pension plan, but the discount rates keep going the wrong way on me. So, what's going on in the market's not helping either. Some balance sheet indicators, days cash on hand for the system are at near Vermont averages. Receivables are budgeted to be about 38 days, which is 20% below the Vermont average. Days in accounts payable 47 compared to the system 55. So our balance sheet is okay. I would like the receivables to be back to where they were in 2018, but increased deductibles and co-insurance is putting a lot of pressure on that balance. As we get into high deductible plans, there's more patient responsibility, and we have to set up payment plans or set up financial assistance for these patients. Debt service coverage ratio, we're at 13.7. I talked about that. Long-term debt to capitalization ratio is favorable. Average age of plant unfavorable. I think I've beaten that out pretty good. Salaries and benefits, 5.4%. I think I rounded up using 6 before. And our FTEs for adjusted occupied bed is reported at 5 compared to 6, which is the state average, which came from the staff analysis in July. Those are the ratios that were the instructions, and we'll go on to the financial review. And I put 2 documents into the presentation. One is budget to budget, and one is budget to projected. So budget to budget, modest increase. You see that net patient service revenue will be going up 4.3, back out to 1.3 for anesthesia. That gets us back to the 3.5. Total operating expenses will go up 4.7 million, 4.7%, $7 million. Drivers of that are people cost, salaries and wages, and the DHPSA, and that's additional providers, and a good chunk of that is the anesthesiologists and anesthesia assistants that will be included in the Dartmouth PSA. We'll go over some more details a couple slides down. When we look against it, that's why I reprinted. Apologize, revenue numbers the same as, should have, now I'm all my time. So our projection is coming in at $5.7 million compared to our budget of $6 million. I know during the staff questions, the question was asked, is your projection solid? When I answered that question for the staff questions, I said, yeah, but, I couldn't do the but. We now have June and July under our belt, and July was not good to us, as we anticipated in our original projection. It wasn't bad, but it wasn't as good as we thought. So my projection is probably, I'm going to stick with the 5.7 as the high side. August returns so far for the first 2 weeks of August August is not being kind to us. Typically July and August are really good months for us. And then they haven't been as good to us as they have in the past, in my tenure, 8 years here. So the projection, I'll stick with the 5.7 today, but there's some risk in that. But you can see where we're pretty consistent where the dollars are going to go up. That's the other reason why I printed different. When this printed, I apologize and I sent it. So the cash flows. There was a question asked about the pension plan, and when we did our 19 budget, we were going to take out the pension plan in the fall of 18. But with the stock market going down in the fall and the discount rates going down, it would have added a lot of money to our payout, and we decided that wasn't a good use of funds. So that's a big variance there. But the pension plan almost acts as another piece of debt on my balance sheet, and we're actively trying to get rid of that debt so we can move on. And so our cash flows from operations in the 2020 budget will be $671,000. Balance sheet, not a lot of changes. When I do the balance sheet, when we do the projected balance sheet, I don't make any guesstimates on the discount rate on pensions because people are going to say, well, the first question that my finance committee gave me, why is the pension going down to 4.6 million? Well, if you want to pick a discount rate and you want to pick investment returns, that all goes into there. So all I do, so I don't get tied up in assumptions, I just take the funding pretty much off the top. And then it's always a variance on a balance sheet. But when you look at the balance sheet, you'll see that we'll have net assets of about 41 million, which is at the bottom, at the end of 2020, which would be an increase of about $7 million compared to our projected, and then about $3 million to our net assets of the audit of 2018. It's just changes in the balance sheet. Operating expenses, we'll go 7.7. Here's the list of significant drivers. Benefits, so we give it a 3% salary increase. Benefits, we have our medical plan, we have a pension plan cost credits in there. That's not a lot, 3%. It doesn't provide any money to make up that gap between us and the state average. Physician and provider costs will be going up via the PSA. Anesthesia costs will be going up. We talked about that. Supply cost, we put the word volume next to that because that's really the supply cost. A lot of it will be in the OR for the increased orthopedic cases. Telemedicine increases. Tom said we're we're a little over 800,000. We're probably closer to 900,000. And just 2.5 years ago, we had $100,000 in our expense base. So you can see telemedicine we made a significant investment in, and we are continuing. And as we're starting, Dartmouth came and visited us and did a presentation. We're looking at ways to value it and do an ROI. Some of the ROI, I think, is going to be better care or more timely care, higher quality. So that's hard to put an actual dollar amount on, but we're working with them on it. Inflation was about $750,000. That we factored in a couple of expense areas, anywhere between 2 and 3 to 3.5% in individual cost centers. We did not put the 6 and 7 and 8% in our pharmacy because we think we're going to make that up through some of the initiatives we're doing. Contracted labor, there's the 600,000 we talked about, increased security. Now, strategic planning initiatives, we're doing a strategic plan. We're going to have to spend some money. When we did the budget, we hadn't identified them, and we still haven't totally identified them, but we put some additional expenses in. So we had something in our budget. But then, the last line item, I took it right out, because I then told the managers, we got to come up with $1 million to pay for that $500,000. And those areas that we've identified is in, we want to leverage our magnet status on the savings program and work on our inpatient staffing and the way patients flow from the ED up to the from the ED up to the floors. And the consultants believe there's some real opportunity there, as well as some restructuring of our practices. We probably have a little too much overhead load on the practices, so we're going to be retooling that. And those are the two big drivers right now that we're looking at. So there'll be some FTE reduction, there'll be some supply costs, there'll be some efficiencies, all built into that. And we're in the final stages of identifying those items. All the other items are pretty much provided tax. There's not much I can do about that. Interest and depreciation is going up because we're making some investments. And as you can see, drug costs have gone down, which is a significant risk factor. I may be using those words that drug costs are going to go down a year from now, but we are going to, my head of pharmacy with Dartmouth staff, are really, we gave them a big lift, and we're going to go for it. Supply cost savings, there's just a whole bunch of other things, working on food and just some of the commodities we buy, paper, and just doing simple things as printing, two-sided, just a lot of little things, but they add up. Typically, I find in cost savings plans, it's going to be the nickels and dimes, and a lot of them that will add up to a lot. You don't get a lot of home runs. So that's our expense changes for the year. I'm going to let Trey talk about our OneCare and our variation data, because I think this is a significant factor when we talk about other things to talk about in our budget in item 7.
Yes, so I guess I get the other. So the other, we focused a little bit on the variation data that came out of OneCare, and a couple highlights there. This isn't good news, but our risk score is actually higher, the highest in the network. Remember, the risk score has a lot to do with basically social determinants of health, if you really want to go down to it. And then the other is that our total cost per member is actually less than the OneCare network average. Those are really strong points to highlight. One point of concern, and I'll show that on the next slide here, is just that our Medicare total cost in the emergency department was high, in fact, one of the highest in OneCare. And I'm going to not explain that away, but point it out on this awful looking graph here. But I think something to focus on is the big blue arrow, and you're going to have to look at the handouts that Steve provided, is Bennington compared to the other health service areas. And if you notice that this is Medicare data here. And what you're looking at is blue and red, and these have to do with standard deviations away from the norm, from the median. You assume a normal distribution. And the blues are good. So the blue is lower cost. And you can see our total, that's the third line, is low. It's blue. It means it's a standard deviation or two away from the median or the mean, which are the same in this situation. But if you look, there is one red, and that's emergency department spend on Medicare patients. And as an emergency physician, I suspect that's because we're delivering actually more of the care in the emergency department rather than in the inpatient, but we're not certain on that. But we feel good about those numbers. And if you go to Medicaid, it's basically showing that we are about steady state, along with the mean for Vermont in the one-year program. We have one that was blue. Interestingly, that's emergency department spend on Medicare patients. So it's really on how you look at where is the spend occurring. It's being broken down for this report. I think mostly just looking at the top line saying the total cost is less for Medicare patients. Then finally, we're not going to go through all these initiatives because we brought them up at the beginning, but Christy and I were going over what do I see and what do we see really direct effects from the list of programs that all hospitals do are really long. These are some that we're really proud of and actually affect the patients directly. You can see it. Specifically, I'll just throw out the opioid response plan. You know, as an emergency physician in the past, when a patient would come and say, I need help, there was not a whole lot that I could do for them. And now I can actually, just in 1 year turnaround, I can actually get them into treatment. I can actually start the treatment in the emergency department. And there's a few in the state that are doing this. And then get them in treatment. That actually saves lives because the data shows that when patients are ready, if you can provide that within a certain amount of time, which is actually very short, 2 weeks, that you will save lives. That's what the data shows. And we're very proud of that. Lots of other initiatives up there that directly are affecting patients.
Next section is capital and our CONs. We have a capital budget this year of $6 million. We'll be doing a 3D mammography, 2 units. We're going to modernize our pharmacy, hopefully get some more efficiencies, staff, and you know, the mixing of some of these pharmaceuticals, you need special hoods, special rooms, special this, special that, and this modernization and renovation will create a safer environment and state-of-the-art mixing areas and storage areas. We also have our routine IT and engineering needs of roughly $2 million. Things break that we don't anticipate, so we always provide. And then we have our strategic plan of $2.4 million of capital items that will either be part of the strategic plan or routine capital. I know we do have a new radiology room that's going to be built up that $2.4 million number that we'll need to, but we haven't spread it out yet. We haven't identified it. We actually have a session tomorrow, and then when the strategic plan gets presented to the Board of Trustees in September, we will be identifying all of the items. Prior CONs, completed our 2016 LINAC, basically came in under budget. Our dental project came in, completed in March 2018, up and running, and actually a really great service to the community. Capital cost came in on budget. Our boilers, we completed that a year ago, came in under budget. The interim project cost was just an extra line in there, but the project completed was about $3.5 million. A couple of interesting points in our budget this year, which got buried, was annual cost savings about $325,000 because we're not burning. The number 3, it's 3 or 4. It's real thick oil. That was getting expensive. And we reduced carbon emissions by 4 million pounds. And when they told me that, I said, what is that? I said, give me something that people could really grab. And basically, on the internet, there's a calculator. And it's taken 1,500 cars off the road a year, what we were putting in the atmosphere. So I think that's pretty impressive. The 4 million pounds did that nothing. So I think 1,500 cars off the road a year means the world to us. CONs under development.
Yeah, just a comment on the family medicine, as I said earlier, this is a heavy lift for us. We won't bring, our intent is to submit a CON to you all, but not until after we finish our strategic plan, which will be in late September. Our board has endorses. We understand we need partnerships to make this work. It's not going to be an easy or quick initiative. As Steve mentioned, we were disappointed that our HRSA grant, even though we scored high, we weren't high enough. We didn't get the grant, but we think we have some potential alternative financing with philanthropic support. We're hoping. So it's a deficit operation of 1.5 million, so it's not a small number. The good news there is that very good discussions with state Medicaid office and Lori, and they see a need, so they've indicated willingness to step up and help with some of the funding efforts. But we need more, and that's the strategy of how we put that together. So the plan's not ready to be submitted to you yet.
And then once the strategic plan is done, the emergency department, we've talked about this for a couple of years, but we're real close on this one. And then what would follow up would be the cancer center that needs some upgrading. And when patients get treatment, we've got to improve the experience in the cancer center. Long-range financial outlook. Sustainability, when we talk financials, Vision 2020 sustainability, we're moving to a high reliability organization. We focus on operating margin, days cash on hand, cost per adjusted admission. We look at the net patient service revenue growth and see where our targets are. For operating margin, we want to be higher than the median. We want to keep at least 150 days cash on hand. And our cost per adjusted admission, we want to be in the lowest 25 percentile in Vermont. And 3-year NPR growth, we want to be below the statewide average, but not too far below the statewide average. You want to
just a comment on that. Our longer-term vision and hope is to be able to create sustainability on Medicare. Talked about that. We have not been there. We haven't been able to get to that level. That's still something that we view as critical as we go into the future. Is, how can we create an organization that has that metric? And to be honest, I think for us to do that, we have to work with other organizations in some way to share overhead costs. Because I don't think we can just get that on our own.
So, and we continue to deliver quality specialty care locally. I've said to this board before, when a patient goes to Albany or goes to Massachusetts, I can tell you that they can get the same care. If we do the service, it will cost Vermonters less. So we're working on identifying ways of trying to keep that. And that'll be good for the ACO model, that'll be good for us, and that'll be good for people of Vermont. And leveraging telemedicine is really important, and continue to transition to the value-based reimbursement through OneCare, but there are some risks with that we have to keep in mind. So I think all these we've kind of talked about. We want to keep a 5-year financial plan with the goal of sustainability. From a financial perspective, maintaining the 2 to 3% operating margin, and that always seems like it's a challenge. Historical compliance, I use a simple table, and we're looking at 2019 to be in compliance. 2018, we were slightly over the 0.5 corridor. And the forward compliance, and the table shows that we were not compliant, day before, so. That's the end of the presentation.
Thank you. To change things up a little bit, we started with Robin all day. I'm going to have Jess there.
Hello, thank you. The end of our long day, but lots of great information here. So, I think my first question is, you guys have been early adopters of days. You've been leaders in thinking about addressing social determinants of health and really done it in multiple ways. So I'm wondering if you can share with us some of the ways in which you as a leadership team are really helping providers think about the delivery reform, changes that they're making on the delivery reform. And payment reform has been coming, but how are we actually, we know there's a lot of waste in the system, there's a lot of expenditures that don't lead to better health. We know that social determinants of health are actually probably where the ROI is higher. What are you doing that you've been in the model for longer and you can help us think about lessons learned and how to do this?
So there's probably a lot of small initiatives that I can talk about that would make. The first one that just jumped onto my head is if you look at resources, and one of the things that are measured quite often is readmissions to the hospital, because that's an expensive endeavor. And an outpatient physician who's never in the hospital may not see that directly, other than the fact that his or her patients are back in the hospital again. So what we've done is we've tried to help them by getting the data to them to identify all those patients that this is happening, and then actually getting those patients to have more touches in the outpatient setting, because that leads to overall decreased cost and certainly better health for them. For our particular service area, that happens to be with smoking and chronic obstructive pulmonary disease. So we have a pretty big team that identifies those patients on a daily basis, 7 days a week, and try to get them back into their primary care provider's office.
So when you did your total cost of care analysis, I want to thank you for, the Medicare Vermont data that you gave us. It looked like you were below average on many of those metrics and costs which you went through. The ED visits seem to be as high as you said, it's a little bit high. Are you attributing it really just to the fact that maybe if you're low on inpatient, you can bring more services to ED, or have you actually explored? Is there a way for you to bring that cost down, I guess I'm asking as well, to think about it?
Well, there's certainly always opportunities that we're looking at. It's a little hard to get through that data, so we have not gotten through it enough to be able to pinpoint. I will say, it's odd that the Medicaid patient costs in the emergency department were actually low in the blue, as opposed to the Medicare. Certainly there's no difference in the care being delivered. We have always been, for a long time, an EM board certified emergency department, so I tend to do more in the ED for the patient before they go upstairs or are discharged than may be done in another institution. I think the costs kind of even out depending on where the care is.
The total cost is still lower, just curious if there's still a big order in there.
But I think also, just to add what Troy's saying, in the culture of our medical community, we have a shortage of numerous specialists. We have a great cadre of board-certified, talented ED physicians who do more than you'll see in a lot of other communities, out of necessity. We just don't have the luxury of having some of the specialists that you see in other organizations, other communities. So I think you see physicians who have a skill set that they can do more. And Trey's an example of one. So it has, I think, shown our costs being higher in our emergency room than some other organizations. In other areas in the ED, we may have been one of the last, I'm making it wrong here, one of the last hospitals to bring on board PAs and associate providers. We've always been very proud of our physicians, but we have now brought them on board, and I think we're trying to have them do more things that in the past would have been done by ED physicians. I think ultimately that will save some dollars. But we're looking at it. I think Steve Mason made a comment. We're looking at ways to reduce our throughput in the emergency room and get patients up to the floors quicker, and all those system things that, you know, we think will help reduce costs, should bear fruit. But as a system, I think, you know, we spend a lot of time on process improvements, and I think, you know, if you look at our organization in total, I think we're pretty good in Vermont. We're not good enough yet, especially when you look at the rest of the country. And that's what I'm looking at, is how do we get our costs lower? That we're in the 25th percentile across the country. We're not there yet.
Well, I applaud your efforts and, you know, hopefully the Pinnacle consulting contract, actually, you can get $1 million on a $500,000 investment. It's pretty good.
So one other point on the emergency room, if you look at the chart, our visits per, well, not blue, we're low. And the other thing is that about 5 years ago, we started a transitional care nurse program. And Trey, tell me if I'm right or wrong, is what we're seeing, the transitional care nurses keep some patients in. We know they keep them out of the hospital, inpatient. They also keep them out of the ED. So our number of patients is lower, okay, on this data. And as a result, I think when they do come to the emergency room, they're probably sicker.
And the acuity might be higher. That makes a lot of sense. In the Q&A questions, we had asked a question about average daily census and beds, and staff beds versus licensed beds. I think your answer discussed a little bit of how you actually calculate occupancy rates. But I was struck by your average daily census. I have this right in my notes here. It was 32 patients. The minimum was 19 and the max was 51. That seems like a wild swing. How do you think about staffing when you could have 19 people one day and 51 people? And how do you,
Well, yeah, I'll give you a lot of data. We do have wide fluctuations. When I talk to the chief nursing officer, we do have wide fluctuations. It doesn't go from 19 to 50 in a day. Okay.
Yeah,
but it does. Within a week, we had that just in July. Okay, when it was way up and it went way down. It's difficult. It's, you know, because you're guaranteeing the staff to work 40 hours. Okay, and then all of a sudden, you know, you say, but you don't have that many patients. You sign a contract for a locum for 12 weeks, okay, when your staffing, you know, when your census is high, and then all of a sudden it drops. So it's a challenge. It's a challenge. And I don't know if we have a perfect systematic way of doing it, but it's a real challenge to any organization for that variation on such a small number of patients.
Is your variation the norm? Is that typical, that level of variation?
Well, I looked at, giving you that, the norm, I would have to answer for other hospitals, but for us, I looked at almost, what was it, Jim, 3 years of data? And we had, you know, X amount of days between 30 and 19, and we had X amount of days, 40. The norm is more between 28 and 35. That's the norm, and that's what we build everything on. And then you have your peaks and valleys.
You know, we have not nailed this down. We haven't, I wish I could say we have a formula that deals with this. I don't think we have. It's a big challenge for us. It's a continued challenge, especially with the nursing problem. We try to balance a lot of things, and we're a non-union hospital, so we're careful not to be arbitrary of how we deal with our employees and sending them home when census goes down lower, and then, you know, next week goes up. So it's a continued issue that we're focusing on, and I think we do a better job, but I think we have a pretty significant way to go, Jessica, before we really get to the point where it's hardwired and we have a great system in place.
Well,
I wish I had a better answer.
no, it's fine. We're all on the path, right? We're agreeing with that. I was going to say, I applaud you if you can actually decrease drug costs, because of all the hospital budgets that we've been seeing come through. So if there's lessons that you can teach other hospitals, or there's lessons that we can learn, because I was struck, that stood out to me, and I think one of the few hospitals that's actually reducing their drug expenses. So.
It's a risk, and I'm not going to try to, my head of pharmacy knows better, and he probably blows us away with all of the clinical and technical things that they're looking at, but that's one of their charges this year. If we're successful, we'll have a successful budget year.
If you're successful, could you share it with your boss, with the other hospitals? Because I think every hospital is struggling with drug costs, honestly, and we're seeing through insurance rate, premium requests and all of that. So if there's a method to your madness, please share. My last question is, I've asked the two other hospitals this morning, and I don't know, maybe maybe this just isn't out there yet as much as I thought it might be, but Medicare came out with an announcement about 2 weeks ago about a wage index boost designed to help rural hospitals. And I'm wondering if that's going to impact, you're about Bennington and
So,
how much?
that came out. Tom comes in my office and says, "Oh, how much money we get?"
Sure, right? We all know.
Yeah, we're reclassed into Massachusetts for our wage index. So the rural, I believe the rural wage index is below 1 for Vermont, and Bennington is higher than 1 because we get reclassed. So there's, and I can spend the next hour and a half explaining the reclassification.
No, that's okay, Bill. I was wondering if it's going to help you. It was new news, and I thought it
It
would
won't
give
help us
Medicare.
because we're in Pittsfield, but it should help some Vermont hospitals. And it's
Well, I was hoping.
Yes, I think overall, that's good news for Vermont.
I was hoping. Okay. Thank you. Thanks.
First, just really want to commend you on keeping, in with our guidance at the 3.5% and also looking at your 19 projected, really staying in line with, what we're authorized for your budget. Steve, I always like your bridges and your presentations are always really clear. So just a couple questions. When I also echo, really across all the hospitals, for any learnings that we get on cost savings, how can we share them? Because, I don't really look at that as a direct competitive threat, to help everybody out. But, you're investing some money with this $500,000 with Pinnacle. Is that a one-time contract or will that be once? Okay. And then what do you expect? You expect $1 million this year, and what do you expect long-term from that?
I'm hoping that we achieve $1 million this year, and that $1 million continues, plus.
Right.
Because the $1 million was kind of, we kind of had some ideas, we put some dollars around it. Now we're honing in on it, and, also for our 5-year financial plan, we need more, and as what Tom said, to live on Medicare, we need more than $1 million. So $1 million will be ongoing, but also we're looking for more. Because in order to pay for our construction and to our modernization and bring in a new technology platform, we're going to have to find some other operational cost savings.
Just want to touch a little bit on the ACO and how you're managing reserves, I guess, from 2 fronts. One, I know when I read through what you've discussed, you're kind of like middle of the road, this should be what we're getting, so we're not budgeting for reserves either way. And I support that process from the but during the course of the year, it looks like you have booked potentially $1.5 million to $1.6 million. And just wanted to touch a little bit about that because one, where is that booking in your P&L? Is it a reduction of NPR? And what information are you getting to help guide that right now? Because we know there's such a lag time, which is one of the issues. So it almost seems like you're not budgeting for it, but again, you're booking it each month. And so if we're going to continue with that process, then should budget for it. But
So we didn't budget for any upside risk, upside gain, downside in the budget. In the actual, we are booking to the maximum risk this year. So we'll have $1.5 million by September 30th in our 19 numbers. However, offsetting that was the OneCare 2018 gain that we had of roughly $700,000. So once we get to a steady platform, okay, once we get to a steady track record, we will better be able to predict our reserves, and OneCare will do a better job getting us data, and each month I think it gets a little better. But as of right now, we have very immature data. So in discussions with our auditors, they supported our booking last year when we were in Medicaid only 100% of the downside risk. And then when that came in, we brought that into income. Okay, and that in a way offsets what I'm booking this year. Okay, which is maximum risk of roughly $2 million for Southwestern Vermont. Okay,
So then, when you go into 20,
right,
you'll have a reserve on the books.
correct.
Are you anticipating that you'll need to be adding to that level, or, because at some point, it's like we have 100% of the downside in 19 and 100% in 20, you know, hopefully.
Right. Well, it'll all depend on, like, the data I have so far, which we just got last week from OneCare, tells me I need 100% of that reserve that I'm booking for 2000, for calendar year 19. Okay? But last year at this time, the data I had said that I was booking way too much. Okay, and then when it came in, I wasn't way too high, but I was high. So over time, I think the booking of reserves and the normalization will get better and have less swings in organization P&Ls. So this year, if you look at what's in the 1 million and 164 million, there's $760,000 of plus. Okay, there's going to be about $1.5 million of negative for an increase of about $800,000. So that would drop that number down $800,000. Just like in 18, in 161, there was roughly 500 and some odd thousand. Because remember, the years are also off. There was a little over $500,000 worth of reserve built into that 161, 115. Which I didn't need retrospectively, but the data I had at the time kind of told me it better happen. So I think it's kind of like OneCare will get better getting us data, and we'll have a better track record and a better understanding, and there'll be less volatility in the quote-unquote reserves.
And what about the care for those that are attributed to you and get their care at your hospital? Are you able to track kind of the fee for service against what you actually received from OneCare to kind of determine, you know, if you're getting enough to offset, you know, some of these participation fees and things like that?
So we look every month at what I'll call zero claims that comes in from OneCare on the determined lives. And I would have said 2 weeks ago that we had it nailed. Something happened, and we're seeing a variation. Okay, so we actually prepared a document to send up to OneCare. Because it appears that we're getting cash for patients that are attributable to the OneCare that we shouldn't be getting cash, claims on, and vice versa. So what's going on? Because if I look at the reports and I rely on the reports, it tells me one thing, but now when we dive into the reports, we're seeing some variation. And Tom Morris and their team have been very responsive to any inquiry we make. So my team just said, and Jim's part of that team, is hey, we got a couple of odd things happening here in the data. So, and then that changes my thought on the reserves. Okay, and then that changes also my answer to your question. If they tell me everything's okay, well, then my answer is going to be one way. If they tell me everything, there's a problem with claims processing coming from Medicare, my answer is going to be different. So I don't mean to not answer your question, but based upon what I know today, it can go either way. And this is, I think it's a learning curve for the board, hospitals, and OneCare. And it shows us that, you know, Medicare is also trying to figure this out too. I think there's less volatility, and the other CFOs may disagree with me, but I think there's less volatility in Medicaid in the claims processing than with Medicare.
Okay, that's all. Thank you.
Okay.
Well, I appreciate your presentation on the demographics of Bennington County. I still own the property that I was brought up on in West Arlington, and I got a letter from the listers the other day, and which you usually don't like because you've seen you think the value's going to be pumped up, and it was actually a very dour letter saying, we're going to reappraise here in Arlington, but your property's probably worth less. So, kind of moving from that to free care and bad debt, we've heard, and seen some fairly dramatic increases in movement in both of those in hospital budgets, and yours seem to be in a narrower range with a 5.8% decrease 2019 actual over 2018, and a 7.5% increase. Do you see much risk around those numbers, or do you expect those to change dramatically given what's going on in the economy?
We spent a lot of time preparing the budget and working with the revenue cycle people. We've historically done I think a pretty good job in when we identify a patient that is willing to work with us. We usually can get them into a program, or we can work on reduced fees, some kind of charity care and things like that. So as co-insurance and deductibles rise, there is going to be greater risk in that number. To counter that, we're asking for more money up front, which is sometimes politically not acceptable by patients. If we know, Tom, if you show up at my hospital, I know you have a $5,000 high deductible plan, you're coming in for a procedure, I'm going to ask you for money. Some people pay, some people don't pay, we still treat them. Some people squawk, okay, but there are some people that pay. My hospital, we collect about 1.3%, about 1.3 of our revenues is up front. National average is between 5 and 7%. So I got a ways to go. Okay, so I got to do a better job of getting the people who can pay to pay. On the other side, people who can't pay, okay, we got to do a good job of making sure we can get them into a program, into Medicaid, or give them charity care. Okay? Then the people who won't pay, that have it, I got to go after them. And you and I have had some conversations. And that may be one method to doing it. So my revenue cycle team is committed to the numbers. They believe there's risk. At my board meeting, I typically put a red light, green light slide up. This is a yellow light budget. Okay, there's risk here. There's risk for everybody. It's just not Southwestern Vermont. There's risk in the healthcare industry. But we have pharmacy, med debt, and our providers, our recruitment and risk. So we're going to stick with our numbers. We'll go with it, and hopefully the initiatives we're putting in place. And we're going to work on our financial assistance policy with the health office. They sent us a letter saying that there's some holes in it. So we're going to sit down once my revenue cycle person is back from vacation, and we'll work with our patients. That's the key. Our patients is our key to success. So we have to work with them.
So I'm looking at the transition of Southwestern to kind of one care format, and you're moving very rapidly in that regard, relative, I think, to the state. Your 2018 in terms of fixed prospective payments was 17.4% of your NPR, and your projected for 2020 is 21.2%. And I think the state is at around 10 or 11%. So, you're leading the curve here. And I'm just wondering if there are any lessons or observations, if they haven't already been said today, about moving that committedly into one care environment.
Well, we moved from Medicaid, and then we moved, the other option was Medicaid, Medicare, and Blue Cross. We have a high percentage of Medicare patients in our service area. So I think that's driving that percentage up a little bit. You know, the number that is a concern when I talk about the ACO is not what we deliver in Vermont at Bennington. It's the total population. Tom mentioned it. It's over $90 million of care we're responsible for. Okay, and the majority of that doesn't come to Southwestern Vermont. And a large percentage of it, over 30-some-odd%, goes to other places. That's what keeps me awake at night. Okay, if I could get all, and I've done the math, I've done the research, if I can get all of that care done in Bennington on the stuff we do, okay, it would be a windfall for OneCare, us in the Medicaid program, the Medicare program, and but I can't just move those patients. The patients just won't come back. You know, people go no choice.
And finally, I just share the wish that you expressed in your narrative with regard to the cost shift. You know, you say that management recognizes that businesses of Vermont through the insurance companies cannot continue to fund the cost shift, which is the darker side. But then you have hope, and where you say that OneCare fixed payment models will be additional pressures on the healthcare delivery system, but if successful, the cost shift should level off or decline, and the health status of Vermonters should improve. And I think that is the hope that we all have. But at some point, that's got to be communicated to the public. And right now, there's like negative messages out there, not relative to OneCare, but in terms of insurance premiums, which then rolls back to the cost shift driving of insurance premiums. So I do have, given that you're substantially engaged with OneCare, do you have, and you have a very good track record. I mean, I just did the calc on your budgets from 2014 to 2019, and it's a 3.4% growth. So it's a steady ship, and your presentation is great. But I'm just wondering, do you have any sense about when you might be able to start to message that healthcare reform is working?
You know, Tom, I think we try to do it all the time, to be honest. I mean, I think we're in a lot of dialogue with the community, with organizations, employers about, you know, where the healthcare reform is on a transformation scale, and it takes time, and it's nothing's easy here. But the fact that, you know, Christy and the role that she plays, working with all these different organizations, I think that is resonating in our community. I mean, people get it, people see it. I mean, we hear about it all the time. And we realize for the health reform to really work, it's not all about the hospital. I mean, the hospitals are an important player, but we're just, you know, we're a big player, but we're not the player. And so I think, you know, we're working on all aspects of it in terms of communicating, getting providers on board. But it's a risky thing. And, you know, we get nervous. I get nervous a lot in terms of this. You know, it doesn't take much. We're pretty fragile. And it doesn't take many errors to create chaos for us. So you know, we're on this journey. We're on it with you guys. We're all in it together. But we also have fiduciary responsibilities to our community. So we're trying to find that balance. But I think we're out there trying to talk about it a lot and trying to put money where our mouth is in terms of what needs to happen to transform the system. The cost shift is a big deal. We realize that. But we're seeing our whole, I mean, Steve showed the graph. I mean, the commercial population in our region is dwindling. It's moving more and more to Medicare and Medicaid. So that puts even more burden on that cost shift. So this is a tough one to work our way through, but we're committed towards working with OneCare, with you regulators, and with our community and providers to make it work. But it's going to be a transition over a number of years.
Thank you.
Thank you. I was wondering if you could talk talk a little bit more about your partnership with the designated agency and how that works from a financial perspective in terms of who's billing and how does the payment work and that kind of thing?
Yeah. Well, just well, I mean, we work with them on a regular basis, and I see, actually, Christie sits on their board, so that's a great, he's a great, person to have. I see us getting, not moving newspapers, but I see us getting closer and closer with the DA. I think they're on our campus, they're physically on our campus. There's a picture you can see there, and I think we have to be at the hip together in terms of locked in and providing services, because we're moving more and more into behavioral health. Because I think we have to, and I think as we move more into it, two things can happen. They can get nervous and recoil, or they can say, hey, come on, let's share our resources together, and let's focus on this problem together. And that's been their approach. Their approach is, how can we tackle this together? So we're now contracting with them to come into our hospital daily to help provide consultation to our providers, to our nursing staff. We have a number of contracts with them, and we know that they live hand in hand. So we're trying to provide assistance and use their services and use their expertise. But I think we're going to have to get closer organizationally and from a standpoint of our operations. And that's my vision, is not to thrust ourselves in them, but to say, let's do this together. Let's figure out a better way. 60% of our inpatients have some type of behavioral health comorbidity. And that number is growing higher and higher. So I don't know how we can not be together and figure out a different model of collaboration, partnership, and integration. I think that's going to happen. And I think it's going to help our patients, and I think it's going to help their organization, and it's certainly going to help us. So I'd say stay tuned, because you're going to hear more of what we're doing in Bennington to come together. And I see, they've been great to work with. We don't battle. I think we look for what we can do together. And I think we'll see, hopefully, a model coming out of our region that will show us, we were being very, very collaborative and integrated together.
I was curious about the details, and I can follow up later, because as one of the themes of the Rural Health Services Task Force is care coordination and care integration, and we've been using buy, not build, between hospitals and community partners. So if there's the ability for everybody to work together and maximize the resources we have, especially given the competition and the workforce needs, that's an area that we're really discussing.
So one of the things we talked about was an ACO innovation grant that UCS and the hospital just obtained to open a pediatric urgent center. So just to kind of put in perspective, previously schools were calling the police when students were having a crisis and they were handcuffed and brought to the emergency department. And so through the collaborative efforts of SBNC and UCS, RDA, got together and we kind of brainstormed what could we do to fix this. So UCS is willing to provide space, and the hospital is going to provide some of the staffing through another contract. So that's just a good example of ways that we can work together.
Thank you. Turning to a different topic, from the materials that we collected in the spring around wait times, one of the areas that stood out was dermatology, and so I just wondered if you could speak to that a little bit. I know dermatologists are hard to find in the state in general, but since it did stand out in the report, I wanted to just ask.
Sure. So yes, to answer your question, you already answered. It's very hard to recruit in for dermatology, and we are working hard on that. There are a few dermatologists, and most of their dermatologists want to do at least 30% of their business to be cosmetic and cosmetic reform, and that's just the need in our area is more like 12% probably. So it's a little bit hard to recruit. I'll say we're actually done pretty well in the sense that we've had 2 solid candidates that came very close. They ended up not choosing, but they were on their second and third visit. And our dermatologist, to her credit, is essentially a 2.0 FTE. She's in the 98th percentile as far as productivity, so it keeps it going. We continue to recruit, and it's unfortunate that we can't provide more of that, but we will work on it.
But, you know, she also, she's a workhorse, and she's incredible, and she works with our medical staff when there's a real need to get someone in quickly. It's amazing how she's able to do that. So, the average wait time to see to some sort of appointment is 6 months, and that's, we look at that and we know that's a problem, but I wish I could say I'm optimistic that numbers coming down in the near future. Probably won't be.
Yeah, let me just emphasize exactly what you said. I had a family member who needed to get in the other day, not using their name, they have a different last name, so it doesn't matter, and they got in 1 week. They had an emergency situation, it's bleeding, mold, and so the 6-month wait, our patients said, we don't want them to wait that long, they don't want to wait that long, but they're not needed to see. It's typically surveillance, annual surveillance. But we need 2 more dermatologists and continue to work on it.
Well, just a question, since you do so much with telemedicine, telederm, is that?
Absolutely.
Is that a possibility?
Yeah, it actually exists, and it's part of what we look at. The current offerings are not there yet at the level that we need it to be. They will be so quickly. That's what I tried to emphasize when I was talking about the synergistic relationship. I'm hoping next year, the year after that, that list wouldn't fit on this slide as they go through there.
Thank you.
So on the anesthesiology practice that you're switching to start, who's currently doing those services?
Private group, yeah.
So it's a local group?
Yeah.
Where do they go?
They will, I think the head of the group will be going down south, and one of the reasons why we're not continuing is his other current associate positions, for personal reasons, had to leave the area, so they're going to be out of the area.
So we're just losing this whole...
Yeah, well, the associate providers, which there's 5 of them, associate AAs, will be staying with us. The physician component, those providers will be all.
So 5 of them stay with you?
5 of the associate, 5 of the associate providers all stay. They all stay.
They're currently employed by the anesthesia group. We will employ them in the future.
Okay, so what does the Dartmouth contract include?
So under our Dartmouth agreement, the physicians will be employed by Dartmouth and contract back to us.
So when you say employed by you, you really mean Dartmouth?
Dartmouth will be employed, and then we contract back through the PSA.
Okay, so what is the dollar value of the existing practice this year to Vermont? What is the revenue that they generated?
The revenue they generated?
Yep.
We subsidized them about $1.2 million last year.
So 1.2 was already built into your base?
Was our expense, yes.
Okay. What was the additional cost?
The additional cost in this budget will be another $1.8 million to $3 million. And then
So not asking about this year's budget yet. I'm just trying to figure out the total cost to Vermonters of the current practice prior to this change.
You have a check. So if we use this year's budget, Kevin, as a basis, okay, the revenue that they would have received, about $1.2 million from us as a subsidy, okay? And if they're getting the same revenues as we're going to get, that's another $1.3 million. So that's $2.5 million of revenues they would have gotten. or
So
thereabouts.
the 1.3 that's going to,
We're going to now bill for it. And that's only for 9 months.
okay,
I can go off.
in your 2020
Go ahead.
budget,
Yeah.
you have an addition of 1.3 million for the entire year to figure out your new NPR.
Right, so.
I'm trying to figure out how you got there.
So the $1.3 million is the billings, okay, that we will generate from January 1st, 2020 to 9/30/2020 for that service,
Okay,
okay? So, because he's going to cut off as of December 31st, we're going to pick up. So we looked at his billings, okay, and we did a calculation, and probably close to 1. If I gross up to 1.3, probably close to 1.7. He would have.
so on the expense side of your presentation, you had that 1.7 million.
Correct.
So, what is the difference between the 1.7 and the 1.3?
1.7 is the increase in expenses to us. Okay.
So
Offset by the 1.2.
So the 1.7 would be 1.7 plus the 1.2, is that correct?
Correct. So he would have generated close to $3 million of revenues, of which we subsidized a portion of that, and he billed a portion of that.
So then if I'm correct, listening to what I think I heard you say, it was about $2.5 million cost to the Vermont system currently, and it will go to a $2.9 million cost.
Yeah, I would say, what I said, yes, if you do that math, but I don't have all of the information.
Can you shoot me that when you get a chance?
Sure.
Mr. Healthcare Advocate.
Great. I'm happy to go. Do you want your staff to?
That's been pretty quiet today. Pat,
Yes.
do you have any questions?
Staff have no further questions. Thank you. Been a long day. I guess a couple quick questions. One of them is, I was interested in the next sentence that Tom was reading, your answer to a question, and I thought he was going to get to the next sentence. He didn't. It was the next sentence that was particularly curious to me. In your answer to a board question, SBMC's actual results demonstrate to management that the cost shift is a smaller part of SBMC's overall total revenue budget in 18 versus 15. I was curious about that. The cost shift is less of a pressure for you from 15 to 18, and why would that be?
Gee, I was wondering what I was thinking when I wrote that. I think it's a percent of total. I think that's what I did. I think I probably took the 142 compared to the 164, and I don't think it's gone up proportionally. Okay, I think the cost shift is bigger as a percent of the 142 than it is today at 164. I think that was my logic.
Okay, thanks.
If you want, I can follow up and see if my logic is.
All right.
But I believe that's the way I would have.
It stood out.
Yeah. So part of it is that we've done some cost reductions and kept our cost lower than inflation. Okay, and we've done some of the other things that really stand out. And this goes back to what I was going to chime in. We have a transitional care nurse program that has been recognized nationally, where we keep patients out of the hospital. So that actually, while it reduces the revenues of the hospital, it actually reduces the cost to the health system, and actually puts less burden on our operating expenses. So, and as I'm talking, I'm going to get your response to that. I know what I did there.
My theme today has mostly been to talk about the relationship between free care and bad debt. And I guess I asked Brattleboro question earlier, and I think I want to ask you, because I want to make sure I understand it. Is there an advantage to you to have a dollar counted? There's an obvious advantage for the consumer to have a dollar counted as free care versus bad debt. But is there any advantage to you as a provider to have a dollar counted in one category versus another?
Well, let me give you multiple answers. Either way, I'm not getting cash. So that's not an advantage. Okay?
So you don't collect on it.
So you don't collect on it. So that's, so having it in free care, okay, I prefer free care or charity care over bad debt, okay? And my simple and my revenue cycle team's approach is that free care for patients that need it, who work with us. When I say need it, need care, who work with us, okay, who recognize that they have, they've incurred an expense and they don't have the money, and then they work with us through our financial assistance policy. Okay, so I would prefer all of my bad debt to convert to free care, because that means I have individuals that are working with us that can't pay, okay, instead of won't pay. Okay, so also Form 990, okay, and for the IRS, I think if the IRS was looking at us, I think they would prefer us to have free care. Because you can have high bad debt because you don't have good collection policies. Okay, and in the old days, when I first broke into the business, you used to get reimbursed 100% of your bad debt from Medicare. So you can have a bad process and still get reimbursed for it. So I think I'm answering your question. I'd rather have free care, okay, because those are the people who need it, cooperate, who acknowledge, and we work with. Bad debt is really the people who, I classify won't pay. And some of them can't pay either, but they don't cooperate.
Let me just also add to that. I mean, I think it's, put it a little different way. Free care meets our mission. It meets our community. And we feel a lot better about that. Oftentimes that is, we view it, well, we're not doing a good enough job on our end. Free care is something that all communities have, and we feel an obligation to provide that level of care.
And from the consumer's perspective, it's obvious for those who qualify for the free care program. I think we all have the same interest that all of those get captured. Right. Your comparison between free care and bad debt is 40 cents to the dollar. That is 40 cents of free care to the dollar of bad debt. And as I've said in previous hospitals, I know that this is a blunt comparison, that I don't know exactly one hospital service region to another, the variations in populations, that is people above Medicaid, but within the free care eligibility. Why there would be such a variation of $1.80 of free care to $1 of bad debt, all the way down to 20 cents of free care to $1 of bad debt. I have to assume there's some real different practices across the state about how hospitals are making their free care programs known and available and ease of access. So I bring it up as an overall structural thing, not to poke at you guys, but more to say, here's something where I think we probably all have the same interest in making sure that people who are eligible for it can get it.
Yeah, I guess when we sit down and talk, it'd be good to hear some other practices, what you're hearing about, lessons from the field to learn.
Yeah.
The world in that.
Yeah. I think that's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Members of the public, is there any public comment? Seeing none, I'll make one comment. The most perplexing thing that I've seen today has been the seeming acceptance of the cost shift and no outrage. And when I hear the hospital come forward and say, risk is whether or not we're going to get a 1% increase the Medicaid payments. I mean, I think that the bigger risk is why are we tolerating just the 1%? And why are we accepting commercial rate increases of double digits and allowing government to continue to exacerbate the problem? But you don't have to respond.
Well, we know, yeah, that's a great point, Kevin. And it's one which, I guess in many ways, I guess we sort of live with it and it's ingrained, but you're right. Until that gets adjusted, we don't get rid of the problem.
Well, thank you for a very good presentation.
Thank you for your time.
And we have an announcement from the Executive Director.
Yeah, speaking of rates, statutorily, we must announce publicly the rates after they've been decided by the board. And those double-digit rate increases is what Kevin was referring to, the board just approved last week. On May 10th, I'm just going to read, so bear with me. 2019 MVP proposed an average annual rate increase of 9.4% over 2019 premiums offered on Vermont Health Connect. Following a review of the filing by the board's contract actuaries, MVP increased its proposed rate from 9.4 to 10.9%. On August 8, 2019, the board modified and approved an average annual increase of 10.1%, with plan level increases ranging from 5.7 to 13.6%. For Blue Cross Blue Shield, on May 10, 2019, Blue Cross Blue Shield proposed an average annual increase of 15.6% over 2019 premiums offered on Vermont Health Connect. Following a review by the board's contract actuaries, Blue Cross Blue Shield reduced its requested increase from 15.6% to between 14.3% and 14.5%. On August 8, 2019, the board modified and approved an average annual increase of 12.4%, with plan level increases ranging from 6 to 15.5%. That is my public service announcement.
Thank you, Susan. That is our motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you, everyone.